I only want to be a dictator for one day.
With the 2024 US presidential elections just weeks away, former US President Donald Trump is in the thick of a renewed campaign, pushing more aggressive and authoritarian rhetoric than ever before.
We pledge to you that we will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country.
So, given he refused to concede defeat in the last election and was impeached for inciting an insurrection on January the 6th, is Trump a genuine threat to US democracy? My guest tonight is Adolfo Franco, a spokesperson for the Trump 2024 campaign. Franco spent decades advising the US government and was a close ally to the late 2008 Republican presidential candidate, John McCain. I'm Mehdi Hasan, and tonight I'll go head-to-head with Adolfo Franco. I'll challenge him on his continued support for Donald Trump and what a second Trump presidency would mean for the United States. I'll also be joined by three experts. Galen, a co-founder of the Lincoln Project, a group founded by former Republican strategists to oppose the re-election of Donald Trump. Danielle Moodie, political commentator, host of the WokeAF podcast, and co-host of the Democracy-ish and New Abnormal podcasts. And Errol Moorcoach, a political strategist and spokesperson for Republicans Overseas, UK. Adolfo Franco, thank you for joining me on Head to Head.
Thank you.
You were born in Cuba, and
Yes.
you fled the country after Fidel Castro came to power.
Correct.
You came to the United States, escaping political repression.
Correct.
You're a Republican.
Yes.
You're part of a party that has long prided itself on being a party of freedom.
Correct.
You've worked on presidential campaigns. You worked for
have.
John McCain, a man who also talked a lot about freedom.
Yes.
You're currently supporting Donald Trump for
Yes.
president, who I think it's fair to say is a little different to Republican presidential candidates who have come before. He is a man who heaps praise on dictators. He says he wants to be a dictator. He even told a group of supporters recently that they'd never have to vote again if he wins this time. How do you go from fleeing, in your words, a brutal, repressive dictatorship to now supporting a wannabe dictator for president?
Well, I don't think he's a wannabe dictator in any sense. He's the former president of the United States. The American people had the good fortune to have 4 years of Donald Trump with peace and prosperity. For 4 years, I didn't see anything authoritarian or dictatorial or anything of that kind.
Where were you on January the 6th, 2021?
I was in Washington, D.C.
So your eyes were closed?
Doing coverage. The president has said it, and I've said it, that a riot and violence should be condemned, as was the violence in 2020 that was going on throughout the country. But let me go back to the question quickly about the dictator, because these are taken out of context. First of all, President Trump, unlike scripted politicians, speaks candidly and speaks in language that the people can understand. When he said dictator on day one, joking and laughing, he said that day I'm going to take
He said it multiple times.
I'm going to take executive orders that day. As people have lived Donald Trump for 4 years. Name me one thing that he did in those 4 years that were the earmarks of a dictator.
Well,
none.
We'll go through it. No, we're about to go through it.
Okay, well, go have at it.
So you say he's joking, even though he said it multiple times. I'm sure
Yes.
if Joe Biden said he was going to be a dictator, you wouldn't see it as a joke. But Trump has also talked about terminating the Constitution, not laughing. He's called for mainstream media outlets to be investigated for treason. He called his political opponents vermin. He even reposted messages on Truth Social, his site recently, calling for a return of public military tribunals with a picture of former President Barack Obama. He behaves like a wannabe dictator, like an autocrat in waiting to me. You wouldn't be okay with Joe Biden posting those images or saying those?
Here's what I'm not okay with, Mehdi. I'm not okay with the President of the United States and the Democratic Party calling a candidate for president that over half of the American people support another Hitler, a fascist, a threat to them. Wait, they're calling him Hitler, a fascist. Those aren't incendiary words.
Wow.
A threat to democracy. Now, going back to the language.
I got to jump in there. You're saying it's bad to call a presidential candidate a fascist?
To call him Hitler, yes.
And to call him a Hitler and a fascist?
Yeah, to call him Hitler, yes.
So he's called Joe Biden a Nazi, and he called Kamala Harris a fascist just 2 weeks ago.
But listen, Well, no,
So it's good for him?
Well, no, but your suggestions were at the beginning with your question that somehow Donald Trump was all these things or whatever is. This is the American.
Do you support a military tribunal for Barack Obama?
The American political climate today, unfortunately, is one of vitriol, is one of
because of your guy.
No, if not because of my guy. This is the rhetoric that people use today. This
No,
is the
not
type
people,
of language.
Trump.
If you asked him, he will say, and he has said it repeatedly.
Do you support terminating
people
the
in
Constitution?
in your line of work. These are so dishonest people. They know I'm joking. They can't. This is the way the American people.
He wasn't
speak.
joking when he said terminate the Constitution.
He is not going to terminate
Adolfo,
the Constitution.
but he wasn't joking when he said.
And he's not going to do it.
Let's get some specifics.
But wait, wasn't he president for 4 years?
Yeah, so let's talk about what he did.
Did he suspend the Constitution?
He tried to do unconstitutional things. Should I give you an example?
Yes, give me one.
So former Defense Secretary Mark Esper wrote in his memoir that during the Black Lives Matter demonstrations in 2020 outside the White House after the murder of George Floyd, Trump said to his defense secretary, and I quote, "Can't you just shoot them? Just shoot them in the legs or something." Is that how democratic rulers behave or dictatorial?
Wait, let me ask you this. Mr. Esper, who was fired, wrote these things afterwards. President Trump has said, and people in the room, that was never said. Mr. Esper was fired. Mr. Esper has been discredited by President Trump, and that's why those comments
discredited by Donald Trump.
And Republicans that worked in the
But he was in the room. You were the Republican weren't.
Well,
why would he lie?
He was not the only one in the room, and others in the
multiple people
and multiple people in the room
said he was right.
They
said that Trump said shoot migrants at the border as well.
But listen, when President Trump speaks, he is not a scripted politician.
You make him sound.
You're making him sound like
a toddler, which some people think he is.
No, he's not a toddler.
He should be president, but don't take anything he says seriously.
I never said he didn't say anything seriously. I said that he speaks in a way that's not scripted, and he speaks in a way jokingly sometimes.
Was he joking when he said shoot people in the leg?
Or he might have said it out of frustration, but I don't believe he said it because he has denied he said it, and others in the room have said the same thing.
In American history, in the last 50 years, you know that American politics better than me. Can you tell me when a vice president has refused to endorse the president?
Well, that has not happened in the past.
It happened this time, hasn't it? Your own vice president refuses to endorse you. Your national security advisor says you're unfit to be president. Your defense secretary says you're unfit for the presidency.
All dismissed employees, and unlike the current president...
His former White House chief of staff, John Kelly, called him an idiot. His national security advisor, H.R. McMaster, called him a dope. His economic advisor, Gary Cohn, said he's dumb as shit. These are the people who worked closely with him.
And all of them...
They don't like him. They don't rate him.
Yeah, usually people who are fired usually
They said this stuff before they were fired, in government. Actually, John Kelly said it to the staff in the White House. We're working for an idiot, he said. We're in crazy town.
What crazy town? Listen,
the
record, crazy town speaks for 4 years of prosperity, low unemployment, and peace. That's what it speaks to. That's what the American people had under this terrible person that they're going to reelect.
So you don't think he's an unserious figure who says absurd, outrageous things?
No, I do not.
Because you said that
Americans
in 2015. Those are your words. You called him an unserious figure who says absurd and outrageous things.
I did say those words, you know, as I was working.
But you don't believe them anymore?
No, I was working for another Republican at the time. That's just the nature of politics. Oh, it's true. It's true. It's true.
So
it's true.
So now you're working for Donald Trump. Should we take anything seriously you say tonight?
Yes, the Republican nominee today, after his record of 4 years, I was wrong, he was right.
Okay. I want to bring in our panel who are listening patiently here. I'm joined by Danielle Moodie, host of the WokeAF podcast. Danielle, Adolfo has been saying that Trump, this is just language, it's unscripted. Of course, he's not a threat to democracy. He's already been president once. What do we got to worry about?
I'm absolutely worried about American democracy with a man that says that he wants to be a dictator on day one, a man that when he was president of the United States separated children from their parents at the border, children who have still yet to be reunited with their families, right? Put them in camps and then took them to court, right? To say that we didn't need to provide them with hygiene like toothpaste and soap. He took them before a 3-panel judges. That's not what a president that believes in democracy does.
Let's bring in Errol Moorcoach, who is a political strategist, spokesperson for Republicans overseas in the UK. Errol, if Harris wins in November, Kamala Harris wins, which a lot of polls show she may be on course to, we know Trump won't respect the result. He's told us he won't. Do you expect him to incite another insurrection?
He would concede the election the same way he conceded the election the first time. If he hadn't conceded the election, if he hadn't conceded the election and he had actually played those cards to the end, he'd be in prison right now.
You realize he's never conceded the election.
Well, by not, like, I don't know, creating some sort of a militia and storming the Capitol, which he didn't do. There isn't any. Yeah, because you think.
You're literally describing events that happen in front of our lying eyes.
But that's why I brought it up. That's why I brought it up, because if it was a militia, they would have had guns. It was a bunch of.
They did have guns.
No, I'm sorry.
Multiple people on January the 6th have been convicted on gun charges.
Very few people, but the majority of people were people there without weapons.
Were they very fine people on both sides?
Let's bring in Reed Galen, who is the co-founder of the Lincoln Project. It's a group of former Republican strategists who are opposed to Donald Trump. What do you make of what you've heard so far, Reed?
I think it is a modern interpretation of the Republican Party, which is all built on a pile of Everything that this gentleman is saying is, in fact, inaccurate at best. I worked for Senator McCain, too, right? There's a reason why John McCain wanted nothing to do with this man. And it wasn't because he insulted him. It wasn't because he said he liked people who weren't captured. It's because the man served 7.5 years in a tiger cage for what he believed in when he could have been released because of who his father was, and he chose not to be. Donald Trump is not 4 years of peace and prosperity. It was 4 years of death and economic destruction.
I'm going to respond to that.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, this is the view that has been expressed here of those who don't want to debate the issues or attacking the candidate. The policies that President Trump stands for are the policies the vast majority of Republicans in the United States, which is 87%. This gentleman represents a tiny faction of the Republican Party, who are really Republicans in name only.
No one's disputing popularity. It's not a show about polls.
Well, it's a show about democracy.
Let me ask you this. Let's talk about immigration, big issue. You want to talk about policy and substance. Yeah. You yourself, I believe, entered the country back in 1961 as a political refugee, as a child with your parents from Cuba. You benefited from American law, international humanitarian law, refugee protection, asylum laws. You were not denied the right to asylum. You were not separated from your parents at the border. Why do you support a man today who supports doing that to today's refugees from Latin America?
Oh, that's because that's just an inaccurate statement. Anyone coming from countries of repression, such as Cuba, North Korea, Venezuela, to a many extent, are allowed the same protections and the same rights that I did, and there has never been
False.
No, President Trump has never.
You're not telling the truth.
No, I am telling the truth.
Do you know what Title 42 is?
No, I do know what Title 42 is.
Can you explain to our audience what Title 42
but
does?
that's nothing to do with Title 42.
Of course it does.
You were asking about political asylum.
That's what Title 42 does. It doesn't allow you to make a claim.
You can make a claim for political asylum.
No, you cannot.
Yes, you can. Under President Trump, 50,000 Cubans came into the United States that were processed.
Title 42 blocks you from taking asylum. Trump has said he does not want to have asylum. He says asylum seekers are hoaxers. Stephen Miller has said he doesn't want any refugees. They have a refugee cap, by the way, under the Trump presidency of 15,000. It's 125,000 today under Joe Biden. So people are benefiting today. Your guy is going to stop the future 6-year-old Adolfo Franco.
That's not true.
It literally is what they're proposing. Have you read your policies?
I have read the policies.
What does Title 42 do? Because you're dodging this.
But no.
You are. What does Title 42 do? The audience, it's an audience in the UK. They're not familiar. Explain to them what Title 42 does.
Listen, what Title 42 does is allow people to claim political asylum.
No, it doesn't.
It does.
Literally does not.
It does.
It's the opposite.
No.
Title 42 said you cannot come into the country because there's a health crisis. You cannot claim asylum.
No, that's correct.
You must leave immediately, and you don't. Hold on, let me finish. You don't get to make a claim. The future Adolfo Franco on the Title 42 does not get to make a claim.
In a health crisis.
And Trump's bringing it back. Let's talk about another policy. Let's see if you're familiar with this one. Trump says he's going to target 15, maybe 20 million undocumented migrants. He's promised to carry out the largest domestic deportation in American history. If he carries this out, nearly 4.5 million American children will be partially or wholly orphaned. Not only is that utterly inhumane and unfair, but you yourself have said in the past that a mass deportation plan is not viable, it's not serious. Your words, unless you want to disown those as well.
Well, here's the difference. I don't disown those, but I have different words today for this reason. We have 10.8 million people. We have a crisis. The former Secretary of Homeland Security under President Obama said that if we had 1,000 people entering illegal in the country, it would be a crisis. We have today 4,350 entering illegal in the country. So we have a situation in the country that we have out of control. 54% of the American people favor a national massive
I already
deportation.
told you I'm not playing the
Oh,
polling
you're not,
yet.
well, you're not
no,
playing
because
the
I want to know how
polling
it
yet.
works.
Yeah,
When
yeah,
Donald Trump
but-
at his peak, actually Barack Obama deported more people than Trump. And Barack Obama at his peak deported around 400, 500,000 people a year. Trump deported, I think, 250,000 at his peak. How on earth are you going to deport 4 million people a year without mass violence and catching anyone brown on the street?
It isn't catching people brown.
It is literally going door to door. That's what Stephen Miller has talked about.
It is going and seeing who is in the country legally.
With the military, using the military?
I have, no plan has been rolled out in terms of the military.
Stephen Miller has talked about using the military. Donald Trump has talked about using the military.
Are you concerned about the 235,000 children this administration can't account for that came into the country under the Harris-Biden administration?
Yeah, because unlike you, I'm consistent in my criticism. I don't change depending on who the candidate is. I'm critical of Biden for what Biden does, and I'm saying Trump is going to come in and try and deport 14 million people. A, it can't be done, as you yourself have said. B, it's a horrendous human rights abuse.
It is a process that will certainly, as you mentioned, President Obama being the deporter-in-chief, deportations will go up significantly under President Trump and will be a deterrent for border security. There is no question we need that. It will be congressional oversight and involvement in it. In the United States, there will be a process, and that process, in terms of deportation, which the majority of the American people
You don't think there are racist goals behind this?
No, I think it's a security situation.
So when Trump says
we have a situation, we have 2,000% increase in Chinese immigrants that are 18 to 22-year-old males coming to the country. We have no idea who they are.
Adolfo, when he says immigrants are poisoning the blood of the country, are you okay with that language as a Cuban immigrant? That is the language, I should point out, that Adolf Hitler used in Mein Kampf, the blood poisoning of the country. He had dinner with a Holocaust denier at Mar-a-Lago. Are you okay with that?
It's not a question of being okay or not with these things. It's a question of what the president's message is ultimately is.
What was the message? The Holocaust didn't happen.
No, he didn't say the Holocaust didn't happen.
Nick Fuentes did, who was invited to dinner.
And did President Trump say that?
He had Kanye West, now known as Ye, an anti-Semite, and Nick Fuentes, a white nationalist Holocaust denier, at his home in November 2022 for Thanksgiving, dinner in Mar-a-Lago. Any other person did that, they would be hounded out of the race and people like yourself would condemn them. But with Trump, you give him a pass.
No, for this reason. President Trump, you're trying to put President Trump, who has been in his entire career a person that's been an eccentric individual, no question about it, not a politician, a person that has not ever measured with the political consequences.
What does that got to do with hosting a Holocaust denier and quoting Hitler?
I think the statement for the campaign later is they were unaware of it, if you remember.
They were unaware of who Kanye West is?
No, I don't know. Kanye West is a supporter, not Nick Fuentes.
Kanye West had said, I'm going to go DEFCON 3 on the Jews. He had said that weeks before he turned up at Trump's house. Yeah. Do you support that?
I don't support that. You know, this is the type of questioning that you engage in when the issues are being avoided.
Issue is anti-Semitism. The issue is racism. The issue is Holocaust denial.
Anti-Semitism. Was he quoting Adolf Hitler? You're a journalist. Did he say, let me quote Adolf Hitler? You're going to be a coincidence in use of words and terminology?
So why do you say it again after he was told it was Hitler?
Because he said the point is...
No, you just said it was a coincidence, Adolfo. He said it again after he was told it was Hitler's line.
These words are not Hitler's words any more than when they said "Make America Great" was some type of fascist speech or something until they...
Poisoning? Adolfo, you're an immigrant to America, I'm an immigrant to America. He's saying we're poisoning the blood. Have some self-respect, Adolfo.
No. What he was saying about this is we have to have immigration that is orderly, that
poisoning the blood. That is white nationalist rhetoric. Why did Trump say it?
Because he's saying that when so many people are coming into the country without any order,
they're poisoning the blood.
Well, they're changing the nature of the society in an unorderly way.
Interesting concession. Let us go to the panel at this moment. Danielle Moodie, what do you make of the argument from people who say Donald Trump's not a racist? People are seeing things that aren't there.
I mean, you don't have to wear a white hood and say that you're part of the Ku Klux Klan to be a racist. I know for myself that when I have people over for dinner, I know their backgrounds. Nick Fuentes has a very popular show on right-wing television where he spouts all types of white supremacist, misogynistic, toxic, disgusting anti-Semitic language. So if Donald Trump doesn't associate or believe in the same things, then why would you have somebody over for dinner? You treat Donald Trump like he's a toddler. He's eccentric. He doesn't know what he says. Oh, my goodness.
But also give him nuclear weapons.
Right. And also, yes, also give him nuclear weapons. And he's totally fine.
Let me bring in Reed Galen. Reed, in May, the Senate voted to kill an immigration bill that was crafted by Democrats and Republicans, one of the most right-wing Republicans, James Lankford of Oklahoma. Biden said he would sign it. Kamala Harris said she would sign the bill. It's not a bill I like, too right-wing for me. But do Republicans really care about border security if Donald Trump tells them to kill the bill, which is what he told them to do?
No, because if they did, they would have passed the bill. President Biden would have signed it. They killed it at Trump's request. Those 86% of politicians you said support Trump killed it because they knew it would take the issue off the table for Trump because, as you said, it was Republican crafted. James Lankford, like, this is not a rhino. Oklahoma is not sort of red. It is as red as it comes
he was pretty
in the
upset
United
about
States.
Adolfo, you were saying pro-immigrant stuff in 2015 and attacking Trump for not being pro-immigrant. You just asked for border security. Trump killed the border security bill.
The so-called border security bill would have permitted, it was a bad bill, up to 5 million people before an emergency would be declared. Up to 5 million people, could enter our country illegally. It was at best a Band-Aid. Even the border...
But that's not why Trump killed it. He killed it because he didn't want to give Democrats a win.
He killed it. It was a bad bill, whether you like it or not.
Well, let's bring up another immigration story that's going on. Errol, let me bring you in here. In recent weeks, Trump and his running mate, J.D. Vance, have repeatedly claimed that immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, have stolen and eaten people's pets. A baseless, some would say racist accusation that's been debunked by Ohio's Republican governor, Springfield's Republican mayor, and Springfield's Republican city manager. And yet we checked, Errol, and you retweeted this nonsense about Haitian migrants eating cats and dogs in Springfield. You're smiling, but it's a pretty dangerous, racist claim. Why were you retweeting baseless claims?
It's certainly not racist, and our constituents on the ground there have reported that.
They haven't.
No, they have. They
haven't.
Not to the city manager, whoever this is, but there are videos.
Who did they report it to?
To the internet? To the internet. Yes. Yes. Imagine that, a place where people share their opinions, and it's
Imagine believing everything you read on the internet, Errol.
I am pointing out that the problems in Springfield and all of these small towns, by the way,
where
the jobs were gutted from that area,
and they
brought immigrants in there. It has certainly created a problem demographically for
you know what's
local
created, Errol, and I'm going to bring Adolfo in here? 30 bomb threats against Springfield after Vance and Trump spoke out. The mayor, the Republican mayor, blamed it on Trump. Republicans are saying, please stop this.
The city of Springfield was doubled in population because of illegal immigration.
It wasn't illegal. They came there legally. The TPS is a legal scheme.
Some were legal and some were...
No, it was a legal scheme. You cannot lie, Adolfo. I won't allow that on this show. TPS is a legal scheme.
They are. And there are many illegal...
And even if they were illegal, do you support bomb threats against them?
I don't support bomb threats.
Donald Trump didn't condemn them.
No, what were the actual words that President Trump used that said...
He stood on stage, looked at millions of people, and lied and said they're eating cats and dogs.
That's
a lie.
And you asked about where the lies came. If you watched Fox News, you can see some of the people.
Thank God I don't.
I just saw people who gave these reports. Whether these should have been elevated to a national debate over this, maybe that is not what should have taken place.
So maybe you should talk to your boss about inciting violence. We will have to take a break there, and we will come back to talk about Trump himself and his character for office. Lots to discuss. Patient audience here in London's Conway Hall. Join us after the break for the part 2 of Head to Head. Welcome back to Head on Al Jazeera English. My guest today is a spokesperson for the Trump-Vance 2024 GOP presidential campaign and a former advisor to the late Senator John McCain, Adolfo Franco. Thank you for joining us on the show. We talked about Trump and democracy, Trump and immigration in part 1 of the show. I want to start this half of the show by talking about Trump himself and fitness for office, because at 78 years old, your boss, Donald J. Trump, is now the oldest person to ever run for president of the United States. And given you, Adolfo, said over the summer that age could be a deciding factor in the election, you said, and given you said that Biden wasn't up to the job.
Correct.
Why on earth is such an old man, confused man, still on the Republican presidential ticket?
Well, I think the only confused man was Joe Biden, is this reason. Age, what is the expression, is a number. And it is an important number. In the case, sadly, of our current president, he is much older than his years, physically and mentally. In the case of Donald Trump, anyone seen him go on for a long period of time and any speech and the level of energy, he is much younger than if you met him in person, much younger than his years. So President Trump at 78 has the energy and the intellect and the capacity of someone much, much younger than he is. The current president, it would have been a factor, and it was a factor when he exited the race, and that is the difference.
I mean, there's a clear double standard going on here, which is Joe Biden is forced to exit the race because he says he was clearly, not in a good shape in that debate with Donald Trump. He, messed up words, messed up people's names. Donald Trump has serious cognitive mental health memory issues. He's perpetually confused and incoherent. He confused Nikki Haley with Nancy Pelosi. He confused Barack Obama with Joe Biden. He confused recently at the debate Virginia with West Virginia. He called Tim Cook Tim Apple. He rants and raves about shark attacks and Hannibal Lecter. He even madly claimed that the photos of crowds at Kamala Harris rallies are AI generated. We all know, I know, everyone here knows he sounds nuts. So why would you entrust him with nuclear weapons again?
And with regard to the, which happens to everyone, the misuse of names and so forth, particularly a person who does not use a script or goes off script and speaks freely, that's going to happen on any occasion. There's no question about that. The problems that President Biden had were completely different. Well, because he is a cognitively challenged individual.
So is Trump.
No, he is
Trump's
not.
the guy, if he sat next to you on the underground, you would move away. He's ranting and raving.
You
know that, Adolfo. Do you believe the photos at Kamala Harris's rally were AI generated?
I don't know if they're AI generated or not.
That's what Donald Trump said. Your boss said it.
I have no idea. President Trump has said he will take a cognitive test, has taken cognitive tests.
Man, person, camera, TV. Wow, he took a dementia test.
And President Biden refused to take a cognitive test.
Adolfo, you're a smart man. I don't understand how you can support a candidate who thinks wind turbines cause cancer, thinks you can stop a hurricane with a nuclear weapon, thinks you need ID to buy a box of cereal, thinks you can buy Greenland from Denmark, thinks England and the UK are the same thing, thinks you can beat COVID by putting disinfectant in your arms, thinks a stealth fighter jet is literally invisible, and talks about toilet flush water pressure in every one of his rallies. He's nuts.
If you went all these statements and put them in the context of what they were saying.
What is the context for saying
in the context of
that you can buy Greenland from Denmark?
And when the context of what they were saying, or people who make these mistakes frequently in the United States, unfortunately.
Your boss.
Anyone, any American.
No, your boss.
But when you look this in the entire of its context, all of these statements, these are not things that reflect in any shape, way, or form his ability or capacity to be president or fitness to be president of the United States.
Let's bring in our panel here. Reed Galen from the Lincoln Project is here, Republican strategist, anti-Trump. You are sitting in the United Kingdom. The world laughs at Donald Trump. Adolfo can deny it. We've all seen it. He got literally laughed at the UN General Assembly. Why do Republican voters not see that?
Well, may I just go back to the AI thing for a moment?
Please.
Because we actually last December made an ad, and we like to shoot our ads right into Mar-a-Lago so he'll see them, where we laced together all the things you talked about. And you know what he did to us? He accused us of AI. They wasn't AI. It was all stuff he'd said. And I think we have to get over this idea of, oh, he just says this stuff freely. Either take him seriously or literally or both. These are the things he says. I think that the reason why the rest of the world laughs at him is because they cannot believe that the United States of America has this buffoon representing what is supposed to be the world's leading democracy. It's why all of our NATO allies are desperate for the guy to lose. And let me just say, if I might, in closing, that you are exactly showing why the Trump campaign is terrified. The entire campaign was predicated on Joe Biden, and now you don't have him. But you want to argue about Joe Biden's inability to campaign or to govern because you know your own guy's in worse shape.
Let me answer it this way.
Please do.
That's not true. Here's why, and you know this, why, whether it's Biden or Harris, which is not, unfortunately, what's being discussed in this program. We're talking about inflation. We're talking about 76% of the American people say the country's moving in the wrong direction under this president. We're talking about gasoline prices being 46% higher, food prices being 21% higher, household income declining 3.4% under this administration. Now, that's the reality. And independents say 60%. That's why we were running against Biden or Harris.
Yeah, but your guy can't get past 45% electorally. That's how much of the country doesn't want him.
Since we're throwing in numbers. Hold on, Adolfo, you like polls so much. CBS YouGov poll from September. Big majority, 64 to 68% of voters in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, the key swing states, say Kamala Harris has the mental and cognitive health to serve as president. Only a minority of voters say the same for Trump. A majority of Americans in swing states do not think your guy has the mental, cognitive health to be president. You love citing polls. What do you want to say about that one?
I'll cite the polls right back.
Go on.
And every one of these states, either the president or Mrs. Harris is ahead within the margin of error.
That's not what I said. I said they don't think your guy has cognitive mental health to be president.
But if the majority of people in those states are voting for him, I don't think they're viewing that as either a serious question.
Maybe they're blind partisans. Let us bring in Errol Moorcoach, who is with the Republicans overseas here in the UK. As a proud Republican, a patriot who loves your country, how did you feel when you saw the UN General Assembly literally laugh at Donald Trump as he was speaking? How did you feel when you saw that video of Trudeau and Macron and Boris Johnson and the Dutch Prime Minister laughing at Trump behind his back when they didn't know the mics were up? Did that embarrass you?
No, I was proud of my president. I was proud that my president is
What about your country?
proud of my country, absolutely. I'm an immigrant to America myself, like you gentlemen.
Did you poison the blood of the country as well?
No, unfortunately, I did not. But no, the situation about the world laughing at Trump, those are the people who our voting bloc doesn't respect. What you're missing here is Donald Trump is the outsider candidate. These people are all, in our view, a uniparty, global uniparty. So the fact that those people were laughing at us, that's exactly the
Actually,
response.
Boris Johnson is one of his closest allies, but
Boris
you know
Johnson
that.
isn't really a serious person.
I agree, and nor is Donald Trump. Let us bring in Danielle Moodie. Danielle, does the American public understand what Donald Trump is saying? Do they respect Donald Trump? We talked about the polling. How do you answer that question?
I mean, what I will say is that I was very happy at how high the ratings were for the debate, because 60 million people who don't follow politics in the way that many people do in this room, or the way that you and I do, or people on this panel, 60 million people got to see Donald Trump without any of the stain-washing, got to see him yell out, "They're eating cats and dogs," got to have him talk about the crowd size and that his rally sizes are so big, got to actually unedited, right, hear Donald Trump with his own mouth. The fact that you can sit up there and have a list of the things that Donald Trump has said read to you, and if Mehdi had changed the name and said, here, Adolfo, here are things that Joe Biden had said, you would have gone off about how Joe Biden needed to step aside and this is why he's cognitively delayed. Here's the thing, the difference between why Joe Biden left the race versus why your man will never leave the race, or the stage for that matter, until the American people drag him off of it in a few days. So the reality is that Joe Biden walked away because he believes in America, because he wants democracy to succeed, because he wants democracy and the people to have something moving forward. And he wasn't going to stand in the way of that. He wasn't going to allow his ego of needing the power of the presidency to stand between the people and possibly losing democracy. That's why he got out of the race.
I have to respond to a couple of that. So this man who, the president, who in July said, that he would never leave the race, he decided in July, with just unprecedented, to leave the presidential race just because of his ego wasn't in the way. Then why didn't he decide that a year ago or a year and a half ago? What prompted this change? You know why he left the race, because the American people came to the conclusion he wasn't physically and mentally fit to be president.
And they come to the same conclusion with your guy.
Then they switched out.
Adolfo, I just quoted a poll. They came to the same conclusion your guy. They say he's not fit for office.
That is not true.
I literally just read the numbers.
That is not true.
Do you want me to read the poll again to you?
Why did he leave the race?
Do you want me to read the poll to you again?
Why did he leave the race in July?
Did you want me to read the poll?
Why did he leave the race in July?
I don't care. This is not an interview about Joe Biden. I know you wish it was. And then you can't defend your guy.
Yes, I can. Then the woman running for president has never received one vote.
Kamala Harris, the vice president of the United States.
Mrs. Harris.
That's who. It's not Mrs. Harris. It's not Mrs. Harris. It's Madam Vice President.
She has not received one vote from anybody for president.
You're right, because I guess the vice president of the United States, who was on the ticket in 2020, didn't get elected by 81 million Americans.
She didn't get the nomination.
Oh, that's right. Oh, okay.
Let's open it up to the audience, because this isn't really going anywhere. So let's see what the audience have to say about it. Let's go to, raise your hands here, gentlemen here in the second row, and then we'll go to the gentleman in the third row. Okay, here. Yes, in the tie. Do you want to wait for a microphone to come to you?
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. I just wanted to ask a quick question about Project 2025, which we haven't been able to talk about very much. A lot of people see Donald Trump's denial of having anything to do with Project 2025 as just another lie on his road to an authoritarian type of government. Could you give any assurances of anything he would do to try to fortify democracy in the institutions that we've got? The Project 2025, as you know, was written by hundreds of his advisors and is very likely to be put in place.
Yeah, he's trying to disown this autocratic plan for America, even though his people wrote it.
The Heritage, his people, these are all people who are not part of the campaign.
All people who work for him.
The authors of the Heritage, as you know, Project 25 are the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation has said, as a 501c3, which is the legal status they have in the United States, that they can coordinate or work with the campaign. So there has been no coordination with the campaign or with Trump officials that are currently associated with President Trump. Now, they have said President Trump has never, according to the Heritage Foundation, had anything to do with Project 2025.
That's a lie.
No, that's not a lie.
It is a lie. He literally went to the Heritage Foundation and said, this is a great group. They're going to lay the groundwork, detailed plans for exactly what our movement will do.
Yes,
so
but that's not Project 2025. They've done a lot of policy statements, and he's embraced many of the policy statements of the Heritage Foundation, but not Project 2025.
His people
he has not.
wrote it.
It is a 958-page document, if you go through it. Many of the things in Project 2025, in my opinion, are very, very good and solid. I don't agree with all of them. They are. They're very good. President Trump has not read that document nor endorsed that document, and there are legal impediments to do so. So this has been a farce over and over, a lie told by the Harris campaign.
Let's go back to our audience. Gentleman here in the front.
So my question is, there is a woman called Laura Loomer who has been traveling with Donald Trump to all his recent events and has been advising him. She calls herself a proud Islamophobe, says Muslims like me should be banned from running for office. And the other week said that if Kamala Harris wins, the White House will smell like curry. Donald Trump calls her great and a very special person. How can you defend that?
I don't defend those comments. I don't.
Why was she on Donald Trump's plane?
I have no idea. I'm serious. I don't know her.
Do you condemn Donald Trump for praising a woman like this?
No, I won't condemn President Trump because I don't know what President Trump's context of what he said it and how he said it. But I don't subscribe to those comments.
So you don't think he has anything to answer for having an Islamophobe and a white nationalist on his flight with him? Sitting with him at debates, advising him, praising her, taking photos?
I don't know her statements.
The White House will smell like curry if Kamala Harris wins. Do you support that remark?
No, I don't support that type of
Why has Donald Trump not condemned it?
I don't know if President Trump has condemned
it. He has not. Why has he not?
Has he been asked that question directly?
Yes, he was asked about Laura Loomer and he dodged it. That's what he does.
He has answered that question directly.
He dodged the question.
He did not answer that question directly. That's my answer to it.
When Barack Obama had a pastor who had said some horrible things 20 years previously when Obama wasn't even in the church, he had to give a speech disowning that pastor. Why does your guy get graded on a curve? He gets to hang out with racists, Holocaust deniers, Islamophobes, and people like you say, it's fine.
Well, no, I don't think he hangs out with these people.
She literally hangs out with him. She comes to the golf club.
I don't know if she hangs out.
You should pay attention more to what your candidate is up to.
I do pay attention to these things.
It's willful blindness, I suspect. See no evil, hear no evil. All right. Gentleman here in the glass has been waiting a while.
Adolfo, hi, this is Chris Sabatini. Clearly, we're seeing a malign axis, if you will, of the malign, of evil, to quote your former boss, George W. Bush. We see it most in the region that you and I both work on, Venezuela, where the elections were endorsed, stolen elections were endorsed by China, Russia, and North Korea. But yet we have a president who has praised Vladimir Putin. We have a president that's even praised Xi Jinping in Trump. We have a president who has met repeatedly with Kim Jong-un. How do you square those things? You're a man who cares about the international order and human rights. Okay. How do you square that?
I do, in this regard. Number one is, what he has talked about is engagement. For example, with respect to Putin and what's happening in Ukraine, that he wants a resolution to the war. Obviously, under his administration, there was not an invasion of Ukraine, which happened under Obama and happened under Biden. So I think he has delivered very, very strong messages. As President Trump has said, even when our policy, as you know, with respect to Afghanistan beforehand, he said I delivered very strong messages to the Taliban in the period of 2 years. Not one American life was lost in that period of time. So the engagement...
Hold on. Deal with the specific praise of the dictators he mentioned.
I don't think he's...
Are you a fan of Kim like he is?
No, I'm not a fan of Kim.
Why is he a fan of Kim?
He's a fan of engagement, and he's not a fan of President Xi. I can assure you, He called him
my friend Xi Jinping. He said he's doing a great job on the pandemic. That's what he said at the time.
What he was trying to do was to try to bring about in the Korean Peninsula some degree of stability and negotiation.
By praising the world's worst tyrant.
speak with him and
No, that's
engage
not what he
him.
did. He praised him.
said, to speak with him and engage with
He
him.
said he sent me love letters,
Yes,
and
he
we
did.
fell in love.
Yeah, and
If Joe Biden had said he'd fallen in love with Kim, you would have gone nuts.
well, I don't think President Biden
Are you in
knows
love
what
with
he's
Kim?
doing. No, I don't love
Why
Kim.
does Trump say we
Because
love?
he loves the engagement he has with him.
That's not what he said, though. Let's go back to the audience here. This lady here in the second row.
Yes, so I know that this weekend Trump posted on his Truth Social page that he would be a great president for women in America. However, it was Trump's decision to appoint conservative justices to the Supreme Court with the specific intention of overturning Roe v. Wade, which was a landmark case for women's rights. Recently, in my home state of Georgia, there have been a number of cases that have come out about women dying of preventable causes due to complications during pregnancy because doctors cannot perform the necessary procedures needed to save their lives because of our strict 6-week abortion ban, which is enabled and supported by Donald Trump and the Republican Party. If that is the case, and that is supported by Donald Trump, how is it that you can defend Donald Trump saying that he will be a great president for women? And additionally, when Project 2025 advocates for a nationwide registry of pregnancies to prevent abortions, how can women living under a potential Trump campaign feel at ease about their reproductive rights and their civil liberties?
Well, I respect your views, but as you well know, being an American, that there are millions of American women who are pro-life and anti-abortion, as you well know.
Minority.
Millions. And what Roe v. Wade does, and what President Trump has referred to, and that's a decision of the Supreme Court, is that every state or localities decide what the abortion restrictions should be by state. That's what's being decided here. The difference is this, which isn't, Mrs. Harris has never really has never really answered is, and including the debate, do you advocate for any restrictions on abortion, which of course the majority of American people do want some restrictions, but the answer has been no answer. But the answer is this: President Trump's position is the
And how do you feel about women dying in Georgia?
Every single Republican nominee for president.
Adolfo, how do you feel about women dying in Georgia?
I don't like women dying anywhere,
but they're dying because of this change. Republican just did a story about a woman, Amber Thurman, in Georgia. Amber Nicole Thurman suffered a grave infection. She died. She didn't need to die.
Well,
she died because of the rule
I
changes
don't
that your
know.
party
I don't know where she was in the spectrum because Roe v. Wade itself had restrictions on abortion, and now the Democrats are advocating no restrictions on abortion.
Do you support the nationwide registry she mentioned, by the way? Do you support J.D. Vance saying the cops should follow women from one state to another?
That has never been the position of President Trump. President Trump has never advocated.
President Trump actually said we should punish women.
No, President Trump never advocated for
He said that
registry.
to your friend Chris Matthews on TV.
He did.
Let's go back. Gentleman here in the blue jacket.
Chris Soprano with Republicans Overseas, UK, a Republican Party supporter. That when I think of all what's happening tonight, there is an obsession with what people have said. And if you look back to the 2016 election, it was very evident people care about what affects them and not what offends them with the words. So what affected them were the policies that Americans were better off during the Trump administration than they were the Biden administration. And I'll give you a softball here. Can you name some of the statistics and policies that Trump did during his term that were superior to what the Biden administration?
When President Trump left office, inflation in the country was running at 1.6%. That's the salient question that's happening. This administration ratcheted up to 9%, the highest in our country in 40 years. Now they're claiming victory because inflation is lower after prices are higher.
So
Gasoline prices, inflation, the economy.
But not the economy. The economy was in a ditch.
No.
November 2020. Unemployment was in the millions. You're forgetting COVID.
We had the lowest unemployment at that time for minorities in the United States.
It's now lower.
Yes, it's true.
It's now lower, by the way. It is now lower. That is a fact.
But I want to bring in Obama and everybody else.
I want to bring in Reed briefly. Just deal with it. It's an interesting point gentleman made that Americans don't care about words, they care about actions. What's your response to that as a critic of Trump on the right?
Well, I think we shouldn't take everything as if it occurs in a vacuum. 2016 was a very different election. We're in a very different place now. I think that the United States and its people have seen almost a decade of Trump. It's amazing. I'll be clear. It's amazing to me that the race is this close. Yeah. It is. I wish it wasn't, but it is. But I would say this. I think you made an excellent point. On debate night, 67 million Americans got to see what they were in for, right? There are some people. Look, I got chased in Pennsylvania last weekend by a MAGA supporter, a drunken MAGA supporter who said, if I ever come back, he'll get his shotgun, right? That is not what I hope for America. Now, what I would say is this, is if you want to take him literally and not seriously, or vice versa, that's the idea. From my perspective, that's not big R Republican politics, and it's not small d Democratic politics.
All right, unfortunately, there's so many more people want to come in. We're out of time, and I apologize to the patient audience. Adolfo, last question from me. You've been in the Republican Party a very long time. Today, it is no longer the party of Reagan or even Bush, who you served under. Don Jr. has been bragging that the Republican Party is now wholly MAGA. It's been taken over. He and his brother gave speeches at the convention. His sister and brother-in-law worked in the last administration. Eric's wife, Lara Trump, who has zero experience, was made head of the Republican National Committee. It's just a family affair now, isn't it? It's the cult of Trump. It's the kind of thing that Republicans would say a third world banana republic is doing. And I just wonder, how are you okay being in a party like this? Do you not worry about your own reputation just kind of, going out and speaking for the Trump family?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, when you don't like comparisons, the First Lady of the United States speaking first time and chairing a meeting of the cabinet in September, it is remarkable to me to have those comparisons, to have family members who, in the case of Laura Trump, is a co-chair involved in the campaign.
What was her qualification to be co-chair of the Republican National Committee?
She co-chair of the whatever. She knows the president.
Sad to see
she knows the
defending
policy. It is absolutely. This is not a family affair. No one has ever accused the Trump children of being involved in the day-to-day management of the government for 4 years.
Two of them worked in the White House.
They had senior positions and qualified for it. The boys did not.
So you're happy to be kind of spokesman for the Trump party?
I'm spoken for the Republican Party. And President Trump is our nominee. And in 4 years, we'll have a different nominee.
Let's see. Adolfo Franco, thank you for your time. I'm going to thank our panel of experts, some of whom traveled a long way to be here tonight. Daniel, Reed, Errol, thank you, all three of you. Thank you to our very patient audience in London's Conway Hall. Thank you again to our guest, Adolfo Franco. Thank you at home for watching Head to Head. We will be back again with another episode soon. Good night. Thank you.